You are watching Learn Excel.
Some other uses for the visible cells only are when we want to create a special format on just the total rows. Let's take a look at all the detail rows again. You'll see that we have subtotals in row 67 and row 72. I've worked for managers who have said, we really want to have all of those rows in bold or bold in a larger font or something like that. It would be very frustrating to go through and have to format each one of those rows individually. It would take almost as long as adding the subtotals individually. If you hit the number 2 group and outline button and then attempt to format the subtotal rows in this 2 view of our subtotals, you'll find that actually the formatting you apply happens to all of the hidden rows as well. So you may apply bold to row 67 through row 592, and even though you're just seeing the subtotal rows, you're actually applying bold to everywhere. So the best way to format just the subtotal rows is, again, to select only the visible cells, using visible cells only. Now, if you wanted to, you could go back to Find and Select, Go to Special, Visible Cells Only, but I'm going to show you a great shortcut that you can learn to basically eliminate that whole hassle of going to Find and Select, Go to Special, Visible Cells Only. Okay, now to start, we want to start from the first customer total in E67 and select all the way down to the last grand total in I592. I'm going to click in E67 and use a cool set of shortcut keys to be able to select all of that data. After selecting the first cell, I'm going to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and hit the End key followed by the down arrow key. This will take me to the last row. The End key followed by the right arrow key will take me to the last column of the contiguous data set. Now remember, if we applied any formatting now, we'd be applying formatting to both the subtotal rows that we can see and all of the detail rows hidden behind. So we need to select just the visible cells only. Again, as I said, we could go back to the Find and Select and through Go to Special and Visible Cells Only, but the great shortcut, the shortcut that's been around forever and not very many people know, is to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and hit the semicolon. Alt semicolon is the shortcut for using Go to Special Visible Cells Only. Great way to select just the visible cells. Now that we've selected this data, we can format it however we'd like using all of the commands on the Home tab of the ribbon. For example, if we needed to apply bold, we could choose the B icon to apply bold everywhere. You'll see that the first time that we selected bold, it actually unselected because our active cell was on a bold cell. We could also make the font size larger or change the fill color or change the font color. I've worked for managers who said that we had to make all of our totals be 12 point in bold with a blue font and a light blue background. No matter what kind of crazy request your manager can come up with, you can apply the formatting at this point. Now watch what happens when I hit the number 3 Group and Outline button to be able to see all of our detail rows. There you have it. All of the detail rows are still in the original font and the new subtotals have been formatted. We're able to do that by selecting the visible cells only. Again, the shortcut is either Alt semicolon or using on the Home tab, Find and Select, Go to Special, Visible Cells Only, whichever way is easier for you to remember. Now that we've added all these subtotals in, you might be wondering, how do we get rid of the subtotals? Do we have to go through and delete row 67 and then row 72 and all the way down the data set? That could take just as long as adding the subtotals manually. Well, it's completely counterintuitive, but to get rid of the subtotals, we actually have to go back and pretend like we're adding subtotals again. You'll see that we still have the total rows selected from when we formatted the totals. I'm going to select a single cell in my data set. Doesn't matter which cell, it just has to be one cell. And then we're going to go to the Data tab of the ribbon. And on the Data tab, use the Subtotal command. In the subtotal dialog box, it remembers all of our settings from before, but we're not going to pay attention to any of those settings. We're going to go to the lower left-hand corner and choose the box that says Remove All. That will remove all of our subtotals and get us back to the original data set. Now there's special logic that you have to use when you need to add more than one set of subtotals to the data set. Let's say that our manager asks for a summary by region and product. The first thing we're going to have to do is make sure that the data is sorted by product within region. The next thing we're going to have to do is make sure that we add the subtotals to the outermost field first. In this case, that's the region field. Now to sort by two different fields, I could use the sort command on the dialog box, but instead I'm actually just going to do two sorts, sorting by the inner field first, the product field, and then the region field. Select one cell in the product field. Click the A to Z button on the data ribbon. Next, select one cell in the region column. And again, click the A to Z button on the data ribbon. We've now sorted this data set so that way the regions are sorted into central, east, west sequence. Within the central region, we have the first product, the second product, and the third product. We're now ready to add two sets of subtotals. Adding the first set of subtotals is just like adding the customer subtotal. We will select a single cell in the data set and then from the data ribbon, choose the subtotal command. This time, instead of suggesting the subtotal by the leftmost column, it's remembering the last column that we subtotaled by. So we want to change at each change in customer to be the region field. All of the other settings that are remembered from the last time are correct, so click OK to add totals by customer. Well, Excel basically just added three rows for us, a central total, an east total, and a west total. We now need to add subtotals by product. Again, you want to make sure that only one cell is selected, which it is, and go to your subtotal command on the data ribbon. This time, we're going to say at each change in product instead of each change in region. And the most important part of adding a second set of subtotals is in the lower half of the subtotals dialog box, we want to uncheck the box for replace current subtotals. And then move to the OK button. Excel has now added two sets of subtotals for us. The first thing you'll notice is that we have four group and outline buttons to the left of column A. If I click the number 3 button, we'll see totals by region and product. If I choose the number 2 button, we'll see just totals by region. And if I click the number 1 button, we'll see still the completely useless grand total. Of course, pressing the number 4 button will show us all of the detail rows. You could carry this concept on to add additional subtotals for other rows that you have. For example, if we needed to see subtotals by customer within product within region, we could continue doing the same steps, hitting the subtotal button and saying that we want to add subtotals and not replacing the current subtotals. Okay, now I'm going to remove these subtotals and show you a couple last tricks before we move on from the subtotals command. Remember, to remove the subtotals, we want to choose the subtotal icon and click Remove All.